Welcome to the Recovery from Relapse meeting. Today is the 8th of October 2024, and we are delighted to have Carli H with us today, who will share her experience, strength, and hope. So, Carli came into Overeaters Anonymous in March of 1987, and she is from Connecticut. So, Carli, it's over to you.
Thanks, everybody. Hi, I'm Carli H. Very surprisingly recovered from the disease of compulsive overeating. And the reason I say surprisingly is because who knew it was possible? I didn't do it. I really did not do it. Something just happened. But it didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened because I really, really, really worked my butt off because I was desperate and I really wanted recovery from this disease. And I've had other diseases in my life. I've had a thyroid disease. I've had, well, maybe that's it. But I really wanted to be recovered from that too. And the only way it happened was because I listened to what I was told to do. I was told, look, you've got this thing. You can either carry it for the rest of your life, or we can nip it in the bud. And in order to nip it in the bud, you got to take these steps. It's like, okay, tell me, because I don't want to be sick forever. I want to be well. So my story is that in March of 1987, I could not stop eating everything and anything. I just couldn't stop. And I had never heard of the disease of compulsive overeating, ever. But I had a friend whose husband was a drug addict, and she kept asking me if I wanted to go to an Al-Anon meeting. And I was very polite. And her husband and my husband at the time were friends. And obviously they hung out together and drugged together and drank together and whatever they did together. And so finally, I don't know, a couple of years into this, I went with her to an Al-Anon meeting. And I just went to one meeting. But somehow, years later, I remembered the Al-Anon meeting, and somehow I found OA. I don't even know how. So I go into OA. It's March of 1987, and I'm given a sponsor. I'm given a gray sheet, and I'm given a big book. And it was suggested, I think I was given the big book, and I bought the For Today book. That was all there was. So I followed the food plan, and I did what my sponsor said to do. And I remember doing the fifth step. So I did a fourth step and I did a fifth step. Fourth step, I wrote down all my resentments, my fears, everything that I thought was wrong with me, and gave it away. And we were in her backyard and we burned my notebook. I don't remember doing anything else stepwise after that. So for 33 years, I was abstinent, lived my life, went back to school, got several degrees, and fast forward 33 years later, I had stopped going to Overeaters Anonymous, and had switched to a relationship 12-step meeting. I was going to Codependence Anonymous. And because I didn't have a food problem, I didn't even remember that I was a binge eater. Did not even remember it. It was so long ago. So for about 4 years, I'm going to Codependence Anonymous, and they don't work the steps in that there, or the meetings I went to, they did not work the steps. And one day I was in the meeting, I was asked, would I be the speaker for for the anniversary party? It was a new meeting. It was their third year. I think we were 3 years. And I said, sure, no problem. Within seconds, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, however many seconds, I couldn't wait for the meeting to be finished so I could get out of there and eat. And it just came over me in like this all consuming, I have to eat, I have to eat, I have to eat. And I did. I as soon as I got home, I went from one end of my kitchen to the other end and back, and back and forth for about 3 or 4 days. And it finally dawned on me, oh my God, I used to do this all the time. I used to be a compulsive overeater. I had complete amnesia in those 33 years. I completely forgot that that is what I was and what I was doing. So then I go into, so I'm in relapse for 8 months and binging my brains out. I cannot stop. And so I knew immediately what to do. Go to Overeaters Anonymous. So I went online, found meetings. This was during COVID, so everything is Zoom meetings. It was very easy, and I can't get abstinent. I can't get abstinent. I go through. I must have gone through 5 or 6 different sponsors, and I did the Overeaters Anonymous. I think they have a 14-week workbook through the steps. I did that. I went to the Zoom. The LA birthday party was on Zoom. 3 weeks after I rejoined OA, I got a sponsor there. I got a food sponsor. I got an agnostic sponsor. I got a sponsor through the 14-week program. I did what they said to do. I did. I followed everything they told me to do. I could get 2 or 3 days of abstinence together, or maybe even 4 days, but I kept going right back into the food. And I was desperate. Because I knew what it was like to not be compulsive overeating. And I just, and let me tell you, the disease progresses. I would wake up I live alone, and I'd wake up in the morning and my kitchen counter would be covered with food, open food containers. And when I go to bed at night, my kitchen is clean and there are no gremlins in my house. So I was blackout eating during the night. I had never in my life ever done that, ever. And when I first got to OA, I was 29 years old. And I had probably been a compulsive overeater in my recollection for at least 20 years. Since I was probably 9 years old, I remember doing weird stuff with food. I mean, I remember I don't know if you guys use feet, but I'm under 5 foot tall. I'm 4'10" and shrinking. I'm now 67. So I topped out at 4'10". And I remember climbing up on all the kitchen counters and above the refrigerator looking for food when I was a kid. So, so 8 months of absolute hell, relapse hell. And I did find the Vision for You phone meetings at some point. And I had started listening to them for maybe a couple of months, 2, 3 months. And I was at a speaker meeting, and I heard one of the people that I've been listening to occasionally on the vision meetings. I heard him speak, and he said he's an available sponsor. And he had his phone number on his Hollywood Square. So I immediately texted him, I need a sponsor, during the meeting. At the end of the meeting, about 5 minutes after the meeting was over, he contacted me, and he said, what are you willing to do? And I said, anything you say, I'm willing to do it. And 2 days later, I was abstinent, just like that. And we didn't do anything different. We worked the steps directly out of the big book. That's what we did. And the whole thing, and I've I don't know, just I guess so I'm not 100-pounder, because I'm 4'10", and thank God I'm not 100-pounder, because that would have been really, really difficult. But I have lost almost a third of my body weight. So I don't know exactly what that looks like if I was a normal sized person, like 5'10". But I can say that I looked like a football player, except I was only 4'10". So imagine a fire plug. I mean, it's just short and squat. And oh, you know what it is? In the so when in the 60s, when I was a kid, we lived in Florida near the Cape Kennedy. Cape Kennedy is where NASA would send rockets up to the moon, and we would watch the liftoffs. And in the very beginning, the um, rockets looked like a pyramid without the top on it. And that's what I looked like. I looked like a head, and then this huge body. And now I don't have that. And I don't have any photos from when I was obese, because I wouldn't let anybody take any photos. So I just don't have them. But I did send Rita some photos of what my life is like now. And it looks like I sent a double. So I love to paddleboard. I live about 4 blocks from the Long Island Sound, and that's my dog Minnie. I've adopted her about a year ago, little over a year ago. The lounge chair, the beach, that's in, let's see, I think May or June of this year. A friend and I went to Mexico, and I'm actually wearing a bathing suit. I would never wear a bathing suit ever, 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 ever. I wear a bathing suit. I wear short shorts. I can do this now. I have a life now. I have a new grandbaby with the turquoise t-shirt. She was 8 days old. And the me just sitting and then the other one, I guess she's about maybe a month old, and she's now 3 months old. And then I also sent in, this is just like the fun stuff in my life. Minnie does not like to get her toenails clipped. So I found this thing on Amazon. You hang them up, and that's my daughter clipping her toenails. Because it's like, we're hysterically laughing if this is what we have to do. So that's enough for the photos. It's just, I'm not a blimp, which I'm very grateful for. And so the reason I even say the word blimp, my father used to call me a blimp. And he had this which is nasty, absolutely nasty. And he had this little ditty that he used to sing, calling me Fatty Boom Velatty. I mean, I don't have to be 100-pounder to have been shamed and ridiculed and judged and felt like shit. Um, I it's not about how much you weigh. It's about the messages that you believe. For me,
that's 15 minutes, Carly.
thanks. So the messages that I got were that I'm not worthy of anything, that I should be ashamed for not being able to stop eating. I will never amount to anything. Here's one. Okay, so this is actually something. So those are all the messages I got day in, day out, day in and day out for 29 years until I got to OA. It took many years for me to stop believing those messages and to learn that I can be anything I want to be, and I can believe anything I want to believe, and I can let go of anything that does not sound healthy and recognize me as a child of God. Now, I am agnostic. I don't have a religious God in my consciousness, and I have tried because I thought everybody who had a God could do this program better than I could, because that's why I figured that for 8 months I couldn't get it together. So, and that is true. So I'm going to tell you how I got out of relapse. Like I said, I did everything my sponsor said to do. Because to me, actually, let me ask a question. This meeting, have people recovered from relapse, or they're trying to recover from relapse, or both? Both. Okay. All right. So the way I recovered from relapse is I believed everything my sponsor said, because he had been recovered for 10 years. I've been listening to him on Vision. I listened to him, and I believed that the big book worked. I believed it. I believed that millions of people around the world follow these instructions and they got exactly what the book said they would get. So I believed that. I believed that my sponsor knew how to get me through the book so that I could get the same promises. I believed him. If I didn't believe him, like all the other sponsors I had had during the 8 months, I didn't believe them. I don't know why. I just it was like, okay, they're just talking at me. Their words were not entering my brain. They were just going through in one ear and out the other. For some reason or other, I believed everything this man said to me. So that's my first tip of the day. Find a sponsor who you can believe and internalize what they're telling you, because that's what worked for me. That's all I can share. He said, you need a concept of a higher power. He said, I don't think that you can do this without a concept of a higher power that you trust, that you believe has your back, and that will protect you and save you from yourself. And he was right. I didn't. I hated the God of my understanding. So what I did, this is tip number 2. I wrote a list of all the things my higher power was not. It was not the God of my religion. It was not the God of my childhood. It was not anybody else's God. It was not the God that that criticized me or allowed my family to criticize me. It wasn't a punishing God. It wasn't the God that allowed me to be victimized by my family and strangers. It it wasn't all those things. And it especially did not condone self-hatred, self-harm, self-sabotage, negative self-talk, or shame. It did not condone any of those things. None of those things came from my higher power. And so then I made a list of, okay, well then what is my higher power? And so I made that list. Well, it's nothing, it's not none of all those other things. So what is it? It's love. It's forgiveness. It has solutions to all my problems. It loves me absolutely. It has me under its wing. It carries me through everything. It's part of me. It's contained within me. It's not out there because I don't have to go looking for it. Because if I have to go looking for it, I don't have a map. How am I going to find it? It has to be inside. It has to be contained. And it has to constantly be expanding. Because as my world gets bigger, it has to get bigger. So it's grandmotherly, it's angelic, it's twinkly, it's energy, it's beauty, it's breathing, it's nature, it's love. It's just all of those things. Anything wonderful that I can think of, that to me is my higher power. And that's how I started. I started with just this little thing that directs the flow of my life. And it takes me towards everything that the steps said I can have. Because left to my own devices, I'm going that way. I'm going backwards. I'm going sideways. I'm going to Mexico. I'm going to Ukraine. I'm going here. I'm going there. I'm not going towards my higher power because I can screw anything up, anything and everything. I have to listen to the words, the whispers that say, just put one foot in front of the other. Don't ask any questions unless you don't understand something. I don't have to know why. I don't have to ask why. I just have to do what the steps tell me to do. It is, I'm not a good cook or a good baker, but give me a recipe, it will come out perfect every time if I follow the recipe. The cake will rise. It will. Don't you love that I use the word cake? So there's no easy way for me. There was no easy way. It was just the one way. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All of them in sequence. I don't get to pick what I want. I have to do everything. If I leave out an ingredient in what I'm baking, it's not going to come out. I'm not going to get what the picture says I'm going to get. I'm not going to get what the big book says I'm going to get. And so it's fine. I have a choice. I can get what I can do, which is swim in an ocean full of sharks, because that was my hell. Or I can put everything into the cake and I can get a cake.
5 minutes.
So thanks. So I really thought I was going to talk about so many different things than what I just talked about. But I didn't. And so I want to talk a little bit about self-pity. And because that was a really, I guess, not just self-pity, but, well, what if I don't feel like doing this today? You know, and I hear a lot about willingness. To me, willingness is irrelevant. I don't have to be willing to do anything. I just have to do it. So I never had the willingness. I had freaking desperation. That's what I had. I don't want to get up and spend time with this higher power. I don't want to. I do it. When I'm making my bed, I'm saying I'm grateful. I try to be conscious. I try to be mindful that I didn't get all the things I've gotten. They were gifted to me. They were gifts. Being abstinent is a gift. Being alive is a gift. Being able to come and speak here is a gift. I could not make it happen. I tried for 8 months. I couldn't do it. And so all my resentments, anything that's going on in my life, my mom died, my aunt died, my uncle died. I've never had a sibling die, but I've had loved ones die. We forget that this is the circle of life. And it's really painful and sad. And the Holocaust, I'm Jewish, and my family was from Russia. And, in the 40s, we lost, and actually in the early 1900s, we lost a lot of family. So it's a miracle that I'm here today. It's a miracle that I'm not in jail. It's a miracle that, all of these, anything that I have today is because something is picking me up and taking me out of harm's way and placing me in a place of I can't do any more harm to myself. And that's what I want for everyone in this room. That we don't get to bitch and cry and scream and whine, and because that's what I would do. But I don't want to. It's too hard and I need to go to sleep. All of those are true for me. I don't want to do any of this. And I'm not a grateful compulsive overeater. I am not grateful. Maybe deep down inside I am, but in my head I'm not. And I don't need to be. All I need to do is do something different than what I did before. I am worthy of every promise in this big book. Doesn't matter. there's nothing about worthiness in the big book. It's very simple. It's just a recipe. Take these 12 steps, whether you want to or not. Just take them and see what happens. So I did have a little bit of curiosity about, about how this happened and how it came about. I had a little bit, but not much. I just knew, thank you. I just knew that I had to do something different. And I decided to do what my sponsor said. And with that, I pass. And thanks for letting me share.